Hello and welcome back. This is episode one of a potential four-part series that I'm planning on doing. It's going to be a little bit different than just a straight up review or retrospective or anything else like that. Something that I've always kind of wanted to hear is I really like the way people connect with the consoles that they own and sort of their past and history and how that has influenced or changed their life or just, I don't know, personalized the story a little bit of the whole console experience. Uh, I've seen a couple of clips online of people talking about that kind of stuff. And I don't know, just that quote popped into my head. If you don't see what you want out in the world, create it. So I'm going to give this a shot. Hopefully it goes well. The series that I'm going to be starting on this is going to be about the Nintendo 3DS. I have a very special relationship with the Nintendo 3DS. I love that console. It has just been the best. To me, it is the finest handheld that has ever been made. You can play any generation of games on it, with the exception of being able to buy Game Boy Advance games on it. But now that we have homebrew, we can access that. So, no no excuses now not to play those classic Game Boy Advance games on your 3DS. For part 1 of this series, I'm going to discuss the launch window of the Nintendo 3DS, how I was introduced to it, and just some of the first games that I received. When I look back over my history with the Nintendo 3DS, there seems to be four major pillars of time that I've experienced with the console. Number one is the launch window. I was a young man in my college age, and so I did not have a lot of money, and I just kind of played the few games that I had access to. I then went off, this is part two, of course. I then went off into the United States Air Force, where I had quite a bit more money. And that's when Nintendo really started pumping out a lot of games for the 3DS. After that, of course, we switched over now into the new Nintendo 3DS XL timeframe, where a lot of those launch titles that came along with that were released. And then finally, since we are now post eShop and everything, that Nintendo was providing with us, we are now left to our own devices with the homebrew and modding community. So those will be the main four videos that I will feature about the Nintendo 3DS by myself. Part one, of course, just now being the launch of the Nintendo 3DS. You have seen probably enough retrospectives of the 3DS to know the history of the launch and the financial difficulties that Satoru Iwata faced. I'm not going to go into any of that because you probably have heard that 1,000 times. What I'm going to talk about is my perspective of that time. At that time, I was kind of having a rough time in life. I did not really know what I wanted to do. I had tried my hand at college for a while, and it was just putting me into a lot of debt. I'd already taken out one loan to pay for a semester at college, and I could just see the bills racking up, and I just thought, I can't do this. I do not want to be in debt for the rest of my life for a shot at a good career that I don't even really know what I want to do. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go back home. So that's what I did. I went home and just got a job, and I got another job, and I just was kind of having a tough time finding something that I really wanted to do. At the time, though, I was temporarily working at Target in Louisville, Kentucky. It was an all right job, but the folks that I work with, they really they didn't want to do any extra work. And they ended up just sort of saying, "Hey, I got an idea. This guy works hard. We'll schedule him. At the end of the day, we'll all leave at 4 o'clock and he'll close the store by himself and just do all of the stocking." I don't know if that's common practice, if someone just gets, run over like that. But at 5 o'clock every day, my shift would start. They all would leave. And then from 5 until, I don't know, 10 o'clock closing, I had to restock the entire Target store by myself. This is not a small Target store. This is a massive Target store. This actually was the Target. I'm going to out it, right? It was the Target store in Middletown in Louisville, Kentucky. If you're from the Louisville area, you know which one I'm talking about. That is not a small store. In fact, actually, just down the street, like not a block away, is a Walmart that is basically the exact same size. And I was having to stock that store the entire time. I very quickly got upset because every single hour, a new list of things would drop. And you would have to say, oh, all this has to go out on the floor. So you have to go in the back stock, pull it all, and then put it all back out where it's supposed to go. One person cannot do that. That is just impossible. So what I ended up started doing was just working a little slower, just kind of looking around at stuff. And that's when I started to kind of see the Nintendo 3DS stuff. Just walking around the back of the Target. Just kind of picking up a box here and there, looking at that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Looking at the games that were in the shipping, like the shipping boxes in the back, and just kind of seeing some of the promotional stuff as well. And I kind of kept thinking, I I haven't played a Nintendo handheld console in forever. My last console had been a traditional Game Boy Advance, not the SP, not the Micro, just the regular old launch Game Boy Advanced. I had a Glacier model. And I kind of had missed having a Nintendo handheld. I hadn't had one in a long time. I totally skipped the DS because at that time I was in high school. I was playing a lot more Xbox. I was playing a lot more PlayStation. And I wanted a PSP. So I just totally abandoned Nintendo to jump on the PSP train. Primarily because I was a child of divorce. So I really kind of had to live life on the go. And the PSP was more attractive to me because you could buy movies for this thing. So if I was stuck in the car for some reason with whichever parent I was with, I could just pop in a movie and watch it. It was great. That was really kind of what attracted me to it, was the portability of not just the games, but also media, music, movies. It was sort of an all-in-one machine, which was attractive to me at that time. But I had skipped the DS, and I was looking at the 3DS now, and I was saying, you know what? The graphics on this look pretty awesome. I think I want to jump back in on this. Now, very famously, the 3DS had launched at $250 in the US. And nobody was happy about that. The sales were terrible. And then famously, of course, they lowered the price to $169, like not even a year later. That was actually when I had found out about it and bought it, was in that window. So I never even had a chance to get an Ambassador console. I never got the 250 model. That was long gone by the time I was there. And so with my Target discount one day, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to save up some money. I'm going to buy this really cool turquoise looking one, which is the one I ended up buying. And I'm going to buy a copy of Super Mario 3D Land with it because I loved Mario. I was a big Mario guy. I always got a Mario game with the launch of a Nintendo console, going all the way back to my first console, the Nintendo 64. So saved up my money, used my employee discount. I got the game, got the console, and I fell in love immediately. It was fantastic. The coolest part to me was that they gave you like a little dock, and you could plug in the cable and all of that stuff and just set that on your desk. And then when I got up in the morning, I just picked it up off the dock and threw it on my bag, and it was guaranteed 100% charged all the time. Every morning when I woke up, 100% charged. I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought it was so cool, in fact, that when I ended up getting later versions of the Nintendo 3DS, like an XL or a Nintendo new 3DS XL, I would intentionally seek out docks for these consoles. Even though Nintendo only sold it with the launch model, I was like, no, 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 dude. That is too cool of an idea. I love that to death. Give me a dock. I now cannot have a handheld console without a dock. It is just the best. So, like I said, I fell in love with this thing immediately. The hardware just was, I loved it to death. But I only had one game. I only had Super Mario 3D Land, and I did not have a ton of money coming in. I had to pay my own bills. At the time I was paying for my own gas, my own insurance on the car, the own registration on the car, my own phone bill, and a few other things. And so money was not, money was a little tight. It wasn't super super unlimited or nothing like that. But I was really passionate about the 3DS. It really just kind of spoke to me in a certain way, and I just really wanted to collect for the thing. I wanted more games. Well, the Nintendo 3DS did not launch with a ton of great software. I was lucky to even be able to get 3D Land at launch because that game did not launch with the console. That came out quite a bit later, apparently. I didn't know, it didn't matter to me. But what was cool to me too was that the 3DS had like an eShop. You could go online and like buy these indie games. Like I remember I downloaded like Mutant Mudds and like Pushmo and a couple of other games like that. And it was just fantastic. I was like, this is great. I love this. I even like the little AR games that came with it. I was kind of disappointed that Nintendo never did anything else with that. They kind of just stopped, which I always thought was unfortunate. But yeah, I loved it. I loved, all of that stuff. My second game that I ever got was I was going to break down and I bought Mario Kart 7. I think that's a lot of people's second game, if not first game. And that was another one I was just hooked on. I just would play that constantly. Um, I remember there was a time where I forget why. Why was I in the waiting rooms? I think I was doing something at the local community college. I can't remember what. Getting a transcript or doing something. I had to go there for like a week at a time or something like for 1 week I had to go there a couple of days to get some paperwork and stuff fixed up for college. But I just remember waiting a lot, and I had brought my 3DS with me, and I just was killing Mario Kart in the waiting room. It was fantastic. I was like, dude, this is great. I'm loving this, After that, I was trying to think of other games that I really wanted. One thing that always jumped out at me was Star Fox 3D. I thought that was just such a cool idea. I loved the look of the game. I'd always loved that game on the Nintendo 64, but money was super tight. And I was like, Star Fox is kind of arcadey. You kind of play through it and then you just play through it again and you play through it again. And you just try to get high scores and you kind of try to do the alternate mission paths. And I was like, I would rather spend my money, my hard-earned money on a quality solid game. And so I just would kind of hold off from that and just kind of wait for other titles to come out. But around Easter that year, I remember my mom had said, what do you want for Easter? I'm an only child. And so even though I'm super old, even to this day, it doesn't matter. My mom will still ask me, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Easter? She's always been super, super supportive of my love for games and my own passions and things like that. And I think she used to use holidays as an excuse to sort of, check in with me, find out what's going on. What are you interested? What do you like? What's going on? And I just remember offhandedly mentioning, I was like, well, I love my 3DS and I'm playing a lot of stuff on there, but there's just nothing really out that I really want to play. And she was like, well, just think about it and let me know. And I had mentioned that, Ocarina of Time is on the 3DS, and I never owned that for the Nintendo 64. I played that briefly at a friend's house. My friend was obsessed with it, so I would watch him play a lot of it. He didn't let me play much, but I would watch him play. And so I was like, what about this, what about Ocarina of Time, Because that's not something it would be a gamble for me to buy it because I don't know if I'm going to like it. I've never really played it. and I don't really know if I want to gamble my money away like that. And so, sure enough, Easter morning, I remember I woke up and I kind of had forgotten it was Easter, but I walked out of my room and into my bathroom, and on the counter in the bathroom was uh, it was like a green and gold and pink Easter basket filled with like that yellow confetti stuff, and there was about a 6 or 7 inch tall chocolate like Hershey's bunny in there, and next to the bunny was a copy of Ocarina of Time for the 3DS. It's those little kind of moments that I think stick with you most with gaming. At least they do for me. I really can remember when I think of Ocarina of Time for the 3DS, I think of standing in my bathroom looking at that Easter basket. It's weird. It's bizarre how that sort of stuff sticks with you like that. But it does. It really does. Like I said, I'll never pop in that game into a 3DS and not think of that experience in that time. I played a lot of that game. I really enjoyed it. I was having a great time with it. Um, but I still to this day I have never beat them. I know everyone is going to scream at me. Everyone's going to yell at me for not finishing Ocarina of Time. One of these days I will sit down and I will do it and I will finish the whole game and I'll probably love it. Uh, I probably will redeem myself in later episodes of this show, but at that time it was kind of a tumult. Like I don't, it's, how would I describe that? It was kind of a difficult, crazy time. I did not really know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going in life. Uh, Kind of aimless. I guess aimless would be the way that I would describe it. But I just kind of kept playing, kept enjoying the 3DS. Ended up getting a different job, quitting the job at Target, started working at Radio Shack selling iPhones, which was a lot more fun. I would rather work with tech than, just be mindlessly stocking, the store for anything. Like stocking baby food is just not that fun to me. But selling phones is a lot better. And after about a year of working at Radio Shack, I ended up signing up for the United States military. And ironically enough, or like weirdly enough, like I kept playing the 3DS. Like every once in a while, I just pop it out, just keep playing a couple more games. One of the games that always caught my eye was the Kid Icarus Uprising. At the time, because there was no 3DS XL and there was no uh, obviously 3DS, new Nintendo 3DS XL with the C stick and nothing like that. They sold, I don't know, I got to look at a picture of this because I'm trying to describe it. But the box was like huge. You got the game and the cartridge like normal, but then you got this like extra hardware to like hold the console while you played it because it was so cumbersome. Like, I don't know, you had to do some control thing. I don't know. Once again, I've never played it, but I just was always like, wow, what is the deal with that game? Why is the box like huge? It always kind of cracked me up. But one of the games that I did buy around launch for the 3DS was Mario Tennis Open. I had loved Mario Tennis ever since the days of the N64. I used to play that game all the time with my dad. And on the 3DS, I once again I just devoured that game. I loved the controls. I liked the touchscreen aspect of it. I always like the gyro with the Nintendo. I'm not a big gyro guy. If you were just to ask me, hey, do you like gyro controls? I'm gonna probably tell you no. But for some reason, when it's on the 3DS, it's fantastic. Like even like the archery thing in Ocarina of Time, like great, works perfectly. I love it. Good stuff there. Um, but yeah, I played a whole ton of Mario Tennis Open. I got a lot of good memories with that game. And the last and final game that I played before leaving for basic training was Super Mario. What was it called? The Super Mario Bros. 2, I think is just what it's called. I don't think it's called anything else besides that. That was one that I was pretty excited for because I had missed out. I had missed out on the new Super Mario Bros. um, for the Nintendo DS because I never owned a DS. So this was sort of my chance to experience what the new Super Mario Bros. Franchise was all about. And it looked really cool. They had this thing with like all these coins, and I just like, okay, everything's gold and everything's kind of crazy. And there's like gold, Koopa Troopers, and you can jump on them. And when you kick their shell, they leave a trail of coins everywhere. And it's like there's this challenge of get the 1 million coins, and it's just everything's coin. There's this block that goes in your head, and it gives you coins when you run. I don't know. It looked kind of bizarre, but I was like, all right, we'll give this a shot. And overall, it was okay. I think that if I had played New Super Mario Bros. For the DS when that had came out, I think I would have got it. I think that it would have swept me up, and I would have said, "This is fantastic. This is like awesome." Uh, but I already had, I already had Super Mario 3D Land, and that blew my mind. I was like, "This is fantastic." Um, so I don't know. I just was like, well, this just feels like a lesser game to 3D Land. I just would rather go back and play that again, honestly. And I beat it. I of course I didn't have anything else to play. I didn't buy a ton of games at that point, so I was limited on funds, and so I was like, well, this is going to be all I'm going to have, so I just may as well beat it. And I did, and it was fine. I don't think I'd ever revisit it and beat it all over again. But it was a fine enough game, it was a good time. But I was just kind of cycling through those games, enjoying myself, just doing little things. I had such a small, uh, you know, a small precious little collection at that time, just a few game cases on the shelf, and I really appreciated them. I really enjoyed them. And I knew that Nintendo had a lot more coming on the horizon, that eventually they're going to be pumping out a lot of these games. Uh, I just kind of had to wait. And I was kind of fine with waiting because, to be honest with you, I had only missed a couple of games since the launch. I had missed out on Star Fox because I wanted to buy something else. I had missed out on Kid Icarus because I was intimidated by the box. I don't know. But I don't know. I kind of thought once I get in the military, once I've got a stable job, once I don't have to worry about bills and things like that, I'll get a nice little savings account, and then eventually I'll just start buying, you know, the games I want as they release, which is what I ended up sort of doing. So after I swore into the military, after I swore into the United States Air Force, I had about a year to wait while they found me my job. They eventually got me my job. I signed for it. Everything was great. And they said, okay, so you're going to leave. And I left in January of 2013. January 29th was my first day in the United States Air Force at Lackland Air Force Base. And on my way to San Antonio, I packed my Nintendo 3DS. I left it on to get those street passes. That was another thing I totally almost forgot to stop talking about. The street pass functionality was fantastic. Why did Nintendo stop doing that with the Switch? You would think of like the portable console would just have street pass forever. I get it. You don't have to have a Mii attached to it or anything like that, but just I don't know, man. Street Pass was just the coolest thing. Like I loved that. That was another reason. That was your reason to take it anywhere. Because there would be times where I'd be like, I'm going to be in class or I'm going to be doing something here. I'm going to go to this, whatever. I'm not going to have time to play it, but I might get a Street Pass with somebody. That is the whole reason of taking it, because you're going to get another puzzle piece, and you're going to be able to unlock this thing, or you're going to do the what was that hero game when you were like having to save people were having to come and save you out of the cage or whatever. I don't know. It was such a cool feature. But I left for Lackland Air Force Base with a 3DS in my pocket. Once I got there, I remember once I got on the bus and we were heading into the base, I was like, okay, I got to turn it off now. Like I'm trying to street pass people on the bus on the way into the base. And I was like, all right, I better turn this off because they're going to start yelling at us here pretty soon. Thankfully, actually, they didn't, because our flight was delayed. So we got to Lackland at about 2 in the morning. We were supposed to be there at, I think, like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but we had some plane delays and some problems. So we ended up getting there late. Because we got there late, they didn't do the whole screaming thing. They didn't kick us off the bus. They kind of were like, all right, we have to in-process you. Like, we got to get everything good to go. So, they did roll, make sure everyone's there. For some reason, we went into this amphitheater, and then they got us all checked in and stuff like that. And then we all went off to the dorms and then went to bed. I mean, we got into bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then, of course, they let us sleep. And then the next day, that's when it happened. That's when you're like, okay, all right, we're here. Gotcha. But yeah, basically, that's sort of the end of the first chapter of my experience with the Nintendo 3DS. Not a ton of games, not a whole lot of experiences. I didn't have any other friends at the time that were playing it. Once again, I was kind of lonely. I was the only one that I knew of all my friends that were playing it. I'd tell my friends about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then that was like it. There's nothing else to say. But that's really the first end of the chapter of my relationship with the 3DS. It is definitely the smallest and the shortest chapter of my relationship with that console, but it is the foundation of greater things to come. And a lot more experiences, a lot more games, and actually a lot more people in my life that, are playing the console and enjoying it. So I look forward to making a part 2. I don't know when I'm going to do a part 2. I'll hit it up at some point. But yeah, I guess that's about it. That's a wrap on the Nintendo 3DS. Also, I don't know, this Street Pass thing. I gotta do it one more time. Why is there no Street Pass on the Switch? Like, I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, yeah, I kind of miss the 3DS. I was like, why? And I was like, well, I miss little things like, like this, like Street Pass. Like, they're like, what's Street Pass? And I explained Street Pass to them, and they were like, what? That's like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, dude, I know. And they were like, why is that not on the Switch? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask Nintendo. I think it's crazy to not. You've developed the technology. You've patented the technology. Just throw it in there. Just hope. Oh, man. If they add that to the Switch too, I'm going to freak out. Hopefully they do. Like, please beef up the Switch. Like, more customizable things like that. I miss the menus and the themes of stuff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's future episodes of the 3DS. I want to keep talking about the 3DS, but that's the end of chapter 1. It's the end of part 1. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you stopping by. Everybody, take care of yourselves out there.